up, everybody? Welcome into the Blogger Bowl Week 12 recap, Week 13 preview. We're doing one big preview show this week because, as you can tell, I am not in my usual digs. I'm not in the office. I am in the beautiful state of Minnesota for Thanksgiving. So just try to knock one show out so that way I can go spend time with my family. Me and my wife can go do some stuff around town and do all that. So we're going to just do one show. I'm Dan. I'll join, as always, by No Way It's Week 13, Mr. Matthew Rooney. Matt, how you doing, bud?
I still can't believe it's week 13. There's just no chance that this is already the final week of the regular season in college football. It's gone by too fast.
It has gone by way too fast. There's no doubt about that. And at least we end up with a really exciting week coming up. There's some interesting games, obviously headlined by Michigan and Ohio State. But we'll start with a little bit of a recap, at least of the two big games that we talked about last week. Washington 22, Oregon State 20. Washington didn't place great in some areas and won. Just so extremely impressive. Against Oregon, Penix threw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. Here he was just 13 of 28 for 162 yards and a couple of touchdowns. There were a lot of drops, and he did make some great throws, but he wasn't as sharp. The offense in particular, just in general, was not as sharp. If you take away the 40 yards of rushing they lost because of a safety, Oregon State ran for 4.8 yards per carry, won the time of possession battle 37.5 to 22.5. So they were able to do some of the things that they wanted to do to be able to win this game, and Washington just found a way to win, so that's really impressive. Oregon State just needed a little bit more from DJU, who did some okay things, but threw some picks, missed on too many throws, kind of was the guy we've come to know over the past couple of years. Guy who's got some certainly tantalizing potential, but doesn't really know how to harness it. But, at this point in the season, if you're undefeated, if you're chasing a playoff spot, sometimes it's just survive and advance in a tough environment, and that's what Washington did.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen them surviving and advancing, but in not very impressive ways the last few weeks, like the escaping Arizona State, escaping Stanford, even USC when they won 52-42. The defense left some things to be desired. This win, especially with the weather, going into a hostile environment, the weather favored what Oregon State was going to try and want to do, which is pound the ball on the ground, which they were able to do other than that big safety, like you said, and then play tough defense. But like Washington went in when they were underdogs in Vegas, underdogs pretty much to everybody picking the game. I feel like just about everybody thought Oregon State was going to win that game with how Washington played, and they beat Oregon State at their own game. Did DJ play great?
Absolutely.
No, Penix didn't play great either, but he played good enough first half. Second half did what they had to do, and that defense was finally really impressive. And are we going to see that effort from them the rest of the year going forward? Probably not that good of one, but they do have that when they need to dig deep and get it. And I think that defense getting confidence now going into Washington State, which good on them by re-upping the Apple Cup for 5 more years. I'm glad to see one of these rivalries that isn't ending out of pettiness, but getting some confidence going into that game and then getting confidence going into Oregon, I think is huge, because if they had just kind of kept wallowing and barely escaping and not winning impressively, there might have been some lingering thoughts against Oregon. I thought this was a very important win for that, building that confidence going forward into that Pac-12 championship game.
I agree completely. Yeah, this was the first time since the Oregon game where I watched Washington. And I was like, okay, I think that they've got the juice to beat Oregon again. I don't think they will. Obviously, if I had to make a pick, I would pick Oregon. I got to see what the spread's going to be. I mean, if it's still 6.5, I would.
Yeah, the look ahead was 6.5, right? I think after this game, I'm like, the spread should be probably Oregon -3, maybe -3.5.
I've got. Let me see. I've got the odds here. Let me see if.
Also, while you're looking those up, Romo Dunza, I can never pronounce his name the correct way. Odunze was fantastic. That the first touchdown he scored, that route was just unbelievable.
Yeah, between Marvin Harrison Jr., Keon Coleman, and Rome Odunze, just to name a few, it's a really, really, really strong wide receiver class this year in the NFL draft. And maybe that eliminates a little bit of the value on Marvin Harrison Jr., I guess. I don't know. But let's see. Wow, it's gone up. It is Oregon -7.5 at FanDuel right now.
Okay.
And I would probably take
throw some money on Washington at that. It's 6.5. 6.5 I can understand still, but 7.5 over a touchdown, I don't get that.
I mean, you're laying -122 if you're taking Washington in the points there, so it's trending back towards that. I want to know who bet up Oregon there. I still think we might be overrating Oregon just a touch there, as good as they've looked. Georgia 38, Tennessee 10. Well, for one play and 75 yards, Matt, this game looked fun. But over the final 59 minutes and 49 seconds of this game, it was a complete laugher. Before shifting to talk about Georgia, I want to put something out there so that there's no hindsight stuff if there are early struggles next year. Josh Heupel really screwed up by not getting Nico Iamaleava legitimate game reps this season. They should have made the switch after the Alabama game, but nope, they left Joe Milton as the starter, and he's what he is. He's not that good. I don't think it really would have changed Tennessee's trajectory that much this season to give Nico some run. Maybe would have given them more of a chance against Georgia. Probably wouldn't have had much of a chance anyway, but you've basically wasted a year of your program trying this Joe Milton thing when there was enough evidence, I think, to suggest that maybe he just wasn't that good of a quarterback. And now they're just kind of left where they're going to have to get Nico some game reps early in the year. The non-conference next year is not super tough. I think they play NC State is their toughest non-con game next year. So they'll have some chance to get him some game action, but it would have probably been wise for the future to have just thrown him into the fire to see what he has. Nevertheless, as far as Georgia, Matt, I'm ready to plant a flag right now. Of all of the quarterbacks on contending teams, Carson Beck is the one I'm rolling with. Penix and Nix have better stats, but Carson Beck is the best pro prospect of the contending quarterbacks, and I don't know that it's really close. The development from week 1 to week 12 has been impressive. He makes some incredible throws and has a lot of the mechanical stuff down that NFL teams love. Georgia with a legit first-round quarterback, maybe QB1 next year in a pretty down QB class, is incredibly scary. This is the week where I became 100% convinced Georgia is going to three-peat. We'll save the SEC championship game analysis for later, but the offense is rolling. They did have some guys banged up on offense, so that's worth keeping an eye on. But man, this offense is just humming, and they haven't even really had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey on the field much together this year. Throw in Dylan Bell and Rosamie-Jacksaint, and it's probably the deepest pass-catching unit in the country when healthy. The defense still has some questions, but when Georgia's offense can just go ahead and put up 40 points if they need to, I just don't know who's going to beat them.
Yeah, it's kind of like when Bama was rolling in their primes. Like one year the offense was great, one year the defense was fine. I would never say bad, but like fine to okay, whatever, like above average. Then the next year the defense would be great, the offense would kind of be retooling. This is the year where Georgia's offense, and granted it's breaking in a new quarterback, is elite. It's fantastic now that they're rolling Carson Beck, like you said. I don't think it's even close next year that he's going to be QB1. And if there were 2024 Heisman futures out there, I'd try and throw some money on Carson Beck right now. He was unbelievable. Tennessee scores on that first play of the game. It's a hostile environment. 110,000 people, whatever, going nuts, singing Rocky Top, and it just wasn't a problem. I know they're a much better football team too, but like that was, other than the Auburn game, the most hostile environment he'd been in, and he just cool, calm, collected, no problem, whatever. Georgia goes out and outscores Tennessee 38-3 the rest of the way. He's just unbelievable, and like you said, like Stetson Bennett knew where to get the ball. He was safe isn't the right word, but he was a guy who did what Georgia needed him to do and could make some big time throws when he had to. Carson Beck is legitimately like a number one pro prospect quarterback. And with him there, that Georgia team becomes very, very scary. And for the second week in a row, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, they're rolling. They're back. I have no worries about Georgia. And quite honestly, now we're at the point where if they lose a close game to Bama in the SEC championship game, they're still getting in.
Yeah, I don't know.
If they lose by a field goal to Bama, I'm not sure that the committee's keeping two-time defending national champion out.
They have said time and time again that you can't. Like, here's the thing, okay? We'll put it out there. I'll do this.
I know we hate scenarios, but
I hate scenario season, and it's maybe worth talking about next week. But a lot of things come into clarity if Texas loses to Texas Tech on Friday. I'm not saying they will. I don't think they will.
Is that a home or it's a home game, right?
It's a home game
on the road.
It's in Austin. Okay. It's in Austin, and like they should win that game. And if they do, that's going to kind of create some things. If not, that's kind of the one domino that can fall that makes this kind of an easy choice, I think, for the committee, barring Oregon beating Washington, and then suddenly you have the 4 seed is like between Washington and the loser of Michigan, Ohio State. But if Texas wins, if Texas wins, you're basically saying, okay, the winner of the Big Ten is in. The winner of the Big Ten, or the winner of the Michigan Ohio State game is going to be in because they're going to beat Iowa. The winner of the Pac-12 is going to be in. So that's 2 spots. Another big domino that's going to potentially fall is Florida State. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But like, let's just say hypothetically, like do I think Georgia's resume compares to Tech? Like, I think Texas's resume is a lot better than Georgia's. And if you're telling me you're going to put a Georgia team that doesn't win their conference and lost to Alabama and a
Mhm.
neutral site in over a Texas team that beat Alabama on the road, like it's an interesting discussion. Do I think Georgia would beat Texas? Absolutely. But like that kind of comes down to resume versus like eye test versus what Vegas thinks of it. I think it's an interesting discussion. I think it's really hard based on just like you can say, okay, Missouri, Ole Miss, like maybe you think Georgia's resume is better because of how they beat Missouri and how they beat Ole Miss. But
Mhm.
I think leaving out Texas in particular with a win on the road at Alabama and their one loss was a close rivalry game loss too. Like it's an interesting discussion. It's an interesting debate for sure. I don't
It's a
think that
position I don't want to be in. I really
right.
don't want to need anybody to have to make this decision. But I mean, we always say that everything sorts itself out, and this year we were saying last week, like it seems like it might not. But as well as Oregon's playing, they do have to go into. I granted at home, like they're in a rivalry game against an Oregon State team that's I know coming off a loss, but a very good football team too, and with a lot to play for with that rivalry coming to an end, and them kind of being the ones that get left at the altar. So I mean that's a scenario in which they could fall, and then maybe they do knock off Washington. They still go to the Pac-12 championship game if they lose this week, correct? I think so. I think we're
Yes,
set in stone
the
there.
Pac-12 championship game is
Pac-12
locked in.
champion set in stone. So like
Yeah.
that's still a very realistic scenario. Obviously, what we can transition to talking about Florida State. What happened there was just absolutely brutal. Such a bad break for them. But I'm just happy I don't have to make these
Really.
decisions. I'm really happy I don't have to be the one to make this. I love to be in the room listening to how they came to this decision and interject if I feel like they're wrong. But I would love to. I love that I don't have to be a part of that.
Yeah, I mean it's true. I mean, I think we can do a lot of the scenario season stuff next week because we need to kind of see like if Texas and Florida State both lose, which is possible this week, like Texas is by no means like a lock to win, and Florida State with a backup quarterback. I know it's backup versus backup. Like do want to talk about that whole situation. In fact, we can just start there. Like, why not? Like the cruelty of the sport of college football. A guy like Jordan Travis who went through a lot.
Mm,
There were a lot of critics of him. Florida State fans were very hard on him early on in his career, and he just developed. He just stuck it out, worked hard, and became one of the best quarterbacks in college football. Had a really, really great run, and to suffer this kind of injury this close to the end game of getting FSU back to the playoffs is just so absolutely cruel.
hmm
Not look past Florida, but there is a juicy scenario where Tate Rodemaker would have to beat Louisville to get Florida State to the playoff. Last year, Travis got hurt against Louisville, and Rodemaker led a fourth quarter comeback on the road in Louisville to win. So, but man, this is just
I
a
think
pretty
I
big
remember that. I
margin.
think I bet on Louisville and was very upset.
I mean, like Rodemaker. Someone said when I made this comparison, so it's kind of like Joe Milton. He has a big arm, but you never know where he's going with it. He throws the hell out of the ball, but it puts everything on the table these last two games in terms of outcomes. Meanwhile, on the other side, I did mention Graham Mertz also suffered a season-ending collarbone injury. There isn't a lot to break down on Max Brown, Florida's new starting quarterback. He has just 12 attempts throwing the ball this season. I
Nice.
did some digging though, Matt, to find out he rushed for over 2,000 yards at his combined in his final 2 seasons of high school, which is only context to say that he's a pretty athletic quarterback who was widely viewed as the most athletic quarterback in that room with margin this spring when they were trying to figure out who was going to be the starter. I'm curious what the game plan is going to look like. They want to run the ball anyway, Florida. Does this open some things up? Will we see read option looks? What kind of RPO game do they have? You'd have to expect a kitchen sink approach from Florida here because not only is this a rivalry game, not only is this at home, they do need to win this game to get bowl eligible. So there's a lot on the table here for Florida. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that coaching staff approaches this game, knowing that there is maybe now a window open to pull off this upset with Jordan Travis hurt.
Yeah, like the window's open just a touch, and like you said, like I know Graham Mertz had some good games this year, but he's nothing special. And this quarterback change, granted it was forced, does allow you to have a little bit of the element of surprise against Florida State. Like they're not totally sure what offense you're going to come out running. They're not going to be totally sure what you're going to want to try and do with the ball. And they're going to be in a spot too where they don't have their quarterback and they're going to need to be a little bit safer. And if you can kind of catch them off guard and get out to a fast start at home in a huge spot, I mean, it is a massive game for Billy Napier because I don't think he's getting fired this year, but 5-7 turns up the hot seat. But like, hey, if I'm 6-6, that's not good enough. But I beat Florida State. I did it with a backup quarterback, and then you go out and win a bowl game. Like that's momentum building into next year too. So this is a massive spot. But on the other hand, if Florida State does go on the road, does win in the Swamp, does go with their backup quarterback and Florida's bowl hopes in his first start in a really hostile environment, I think that, granted, they still have to go beat Louisville in an ACC championship game. Like, that does a lot to build confidence in that program, like for that program too, going forward against in the Louisville game. Because when your quarterback goes down, that locker room gets shook a little bit. And I know they obviously had no problem with Abilene Christian, but like, if Rodemaker can go out, look good against Florida, calm the seas a little bit, that does a lot in building belief in that locker room going forward into an ACC championship game, as opposed to sneaking away with a 17-14 win where your defense takes the ball away a bunch and you kick a field goal and scores a couple short touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that a year, and if they beat Florida State, they will have beaten Florida State and Tennessee, which is like 2 of the 3 games you're mostly expected to win at Florida. But at the same time, like, losing to Kentucky every year has become a thing, and that's not great. And they've lost 4 in a row. Granted, the Arkansas game and the Missouri game were by 3 and 2 points.
You can't lose to Arkansas.
LSU was a road game against a quarterback who was trying to win the Heisman Trophy. So who knows? It's an interesting scenario there. Another big one this weekend is the Iron Bowl. Alabama looking to keep their playoff hopes alive.
Auburn coming in with some momentum.
Yeah, I wanted to. The only reason I really want to talk about this was last year Hugh Freeze had 1 foot out the door. New Mexico State kicked the crap out of Liberty. That was the team that was just mailing it in at this point. Now he was at Auburn and he got his butt kicked once again by New Mexico State. This time Auburn paid $1.8 million to do it. I watched a lot of this game, dude. There was nothing fluky about it. It wasn't like weird turnover variance or anything. The better coach, better prepared team whooped the asses of the other team. Like, the other team was an SEC team playing a Conference USA team in a bye game before the Iron Bowl. Like, wow. My only case for Auburn having a chance in this game is because it would be the ultimate because it's college football. Alabama's rolling. Auburn is not. The game is at Auburn. Weird stuff happens at Auburn. Maybe we get one more weird one this year. Like, Auburn lost by more points to New Mexico State than they lost by 2 by Georgia. Like,
which is just wild. Like, just Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia going in there and just doing the Lord's work. But you're right, because I feel like the Iron Bowl especially when it's at Auburn. I feel like it at Alabama has a tendency to sometimes get out of hand, but I feel like especially at Auburn, just weird things tend to happen. Like the Bryce Young game when 2 years ago when it was there, like Auburn was awful. They were on their 3rd quarterback and they almost pulled off that win there when they had no business competing with that football team. Like, I don't know. It's something weird is going to happen, and I feel like that's still going to be a game that's going to end up being close. But I don't know. Like, I get you're in a look-ahead spot, but Hugh Freeze, come on, man. It's New Mexico State. And I know they're not they're not a terrible football team, but you paid them $1 million to come in, and you get not only lose, you get embarrassed. Multiple scores. Like, I have no idea how that happened. That's so bad, but still, it's the Iron Bowl. Weird shit happens in the Iron Bowl no matter what. So I'm gonna be locked in.
That's true. In the Pac-12, we have 2 games here that are rivalry games. We thought might be the last time these rivalry games are played. As you mentioned earlier, we did get an extension through 2028 on the Apple Cup, which is awesome. Hopefully, Oregon and Oregon State come to a similar agreement to keep that series going. The big question is, does either road team have a shot here? I mean, I think these games would be a lot more interesting to me if either Oregon or Washington were playing on the road. Wazoo came in after they're coming in after beating the crap out of Colorado, but their season had been circling the drain before that. They had not been playing well. They lost to Arizona State, Cal, and Stanford, which is pretty brutal. On the flip side, I like a lot of what Oregon State does, but a quarterback who can be a bit cavalier with the ball, needing to go strike for strike with a Heisman candidate who is going up against an Oregon State secondary that's been banged up for a while seems just like a tough task for Oregon State there. Like, again, if that game was in Corvallis, I'd feel a lot more interested in the outcome there. I mean, I'm still going to watch it if I can. Like, I'm not saying, like, don't watch it or anything. Like, it's still going to be intense. It's still going to be fun. But, like, DJU has the ability to go out and beat just about anybody on any given day, but he also has the ability to throw the ball away 3 times. And that Oregon State secondary has been dealing with injuries. Like I said, Oregon, the bus driver, Bo Nix, he's just going to dump the ball off for 5 yards a clip and then let his receivers go run for 20 yards so that he can win the Heisman Trophy. So a lot at stake. Do you think either one of those games ends up being surprisingly like the potential the underdog has a chance, like maybe a possession late to win these games, or do you think it's
Oregon State is the one Oregon State is the one for me that I think has that chance, especially with Washington being at home. Like Washington State looked great in their win over Colorado, but like Colorado's offensive line is just so bad. Shadur got hurt, and just the snowball kind of kept rolling there. Like that's a team that, like you said, has been absolutely reeling. And I think Washington now has some momentum. I don't think that one's going to be all that close, especially like weirdly enough, the fact that that rivalry got extended. There really is no more of that like, oh, like breakup type feel to it. Like, oh, they're leaving the conference. Like, no, the rivalry's still there, and that's kind of what matters more. I mean, Oregon State has the talent, I think, to keep up with Oregon if they play a perfect football game. DJ's got to be, like you said, he's got the capability to make every throw. He's got the capability to go 3 and out 4 times in a row. We need, good DJ, the best version of DJ, who's playing really well. That Oregon State needs to dominate time of possession and run the football with it, efficiently. They probably need to come up with a couple takeaways, but that's a team that I think is legitimately good enough to go into Oregon and come away with a win if everything goes well and Oregon doesn't play their best game. Whereas Washington State, like I don't really see it on the road at Washington, especially with Washington having as much momentum as they do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'd like those games to be competitive and fun, and maybe we'll get a surprise there. Because we talked about how like there's usually a blood week every year in college football, and there hasn't been one. This would certainly be the week.
Were we talking
And
about that last week that there was the possibility for it? Yeah, like it just refuses to happen.
It was Tennessee. Can Tennessee, can Iowa State, and can Oregon State give us?
Maryland looked like they might throw a wrench into it for a little while.
That one came out of nowhere. Michigan, they continue to do their thing where it's us against the world, and then they come out and look like crap. Speaking of Michigan, it's the game. It's the biggest game on the college football calendar just about every season. Michigan's a 3.5-point favorite over Ohio State at home. The total is 46.5. I think it's important, Matt, to put last year's game into some context. Michigan had a 37% success rate. Michigan had a negative 0.44 EPA per play without explosives. They ran 60 plays and had explosive plays on 10 of them. That's your ball game. If those teams played 10 times, it's no more than 6-4 in either direction. A 22-point win was an extreme outlier. The game wasn't about Michigan dominating. It wasn't about culture or any of that kind of stuff. Michigan hit a bunch of big plays, and Jim Knowles and the Ohio State defense didn't make any adjustments to stop them. So trying to handicap this game, there's nothing tangible I can point to from a nerdy perspective here that I think is a key. I think these two teams are super evenly matched. Both teams have played suspect schedules. Michigan way more than Ohio State, who at least played Notre Dame. But the Big Ten this year just not very good. Ohio State has the best pro prospect on the field in this game, but even with Harbaugh not coaching the game, he's still involved in all of the prep. So I like Michigan's coaching staff and their quarterback more here. I think the key is Jim Knowles. Everyone was super high on the hire last year, with the exception of the 2 biggest games of the year against Michigan and Georgia. The defense was significantly better. Does he have a better game plan this year? Does he have better adjustments? If he does, I think this game has potential to be an all-time classic in this rivalry. Slight lean towards Michigan at home. But I have no real tangible thoughts in terms of the outcome. Like nothing would surprise me other than just like just a dominant wire-to-wire blowout either way.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that would surprise me. I'm glad you brought up the analytics of last year's win, because I feel like that's something between you, me, and Phil has been brought up on the show quite a bit. Like, yes, Michigan won by 22, but they just hit every time they took a home run swing, they hit on that. And that's not something that's a sustainable model. That's not something that's, you can dive too deeply into. And you said you like the Michigan quarterback that much better, and I get he's at home and I get he has the experience, but like JJ McCarthy in his last 2 weeks has 15 completions. And this week they let him throw the ball a little bit more against the Maryland defense that is absolutely nothing special. 12 of 23, 141 yards, an interception. And he threw an interception, got called back due to a penalty, threw an interception, I think, on the next play. Like, there was a throw late in the game over the middle that he had a receiver open that could have ended the ball game. He just completely missed it. I'm not so certain. And again, he had this last year against U of I, when the game leading up to Michigan, where he didn't look very good against U of I. Obviously, they end up winning the game pretty big against Ohio State. But like, I haven't seen anything in the last couple weeks and against the one team that Michigan played that is like, oh my God, JJ McCarthy is that much better than what we've seen from Kyle McCord. And I don't think Kyle McCord is this great quarterback. I think he's, especially the last couple weeks against really bad teams, has been heating up. But like, he's a guy that's just they're relying on to get to their elite playmakers. And I think they clearly have the better playmakers than Michigan, at least on the outside, between Harrison, between Ibuka, Stover's getting healthy, Travion Henderson starting to look like Travion Henderson again. Like, I think Ohio State has the better weapons, and I think it's just going to come down to which defense can make more plays, because Ohio State's defense is playing fantastic football. Michigan's defense has been pretty good too. They were dominant against Penn State. They showed a few cracks against Maryland, but for the most part were really good when they had to be. It's just going to be which defense I think can take the ball away more.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to come down to a handful of plays, and like this is one of those games I don't really want to bet on. I just kind of want to watch it, kind of want to enjoy it, have some fun, like see what happens, because it just, I mean, it's so intense every year. It's the hatred is there. There's just so much more involved this year with the cheating scandal and all that kind of stuff. So I'm pretty pumped for it. And like he's like, dude, I have no clue.
I'm interested to see
an idea, but like I just don't know.
Yeah, leading up to the Penn State game and kind of through that, I was leaning towards Michigan. I think after this last week, after what I saw against Maryland, I probably lean like 51-49 Ohio State, but I like this game still just feels very much like a coin flip to me. I'm interested to see if Ryan Day learned from last year, because last year they were the more talented football team, but he kind of coached conservatively and not to lose instead of trying to bury Michigan, and he let Michigan up off the mat and they hit their home runs and ended up winning the game big time. Like, that was a game early that I think Ryan Day could have gone up 14, or I think it could have been like 14 early, and kind of had all the momentum and just really sucked the life out of Michigan and kind of kept their foot off the gas. And then multiple times just played really, really weirdly conservative for who his quarterback was, for who his receivers were. I hope he does not do that in this one, especially on the road. Yeah. Don't try and beat Michigan at their own game. You have the skill players to kind of turn this into a track meet if everything plays well. And I don't think Michigan can keep up with a track meet. I think if this gets into that knockdown, drag them out brawl, it favors Michigan. So I would hope that Ryan Day has learned from last year and is like, all right, we're going to try and play fast. We're going to try and get the ball out to our playmakers and turn this thing into a track meet.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it kind of this game feels super underish to some degree. Brian, who's a Michigan fan, says it's either Michigan ATS or.
I think that's a pretty fair way to bet this one. Yeah, I'm not betting Ohio State plus 3.5. I'm betting Ohio State. I'm betting the money line.
Yeah, and I think Mickey brings up a good point. Like, obviously, he doesn't have CJ Stroud this year. Like, how aggressive are they going to be with Kyle McCord? Are they going to let Kyle McCord go out there and cook? Like, this is the guy that you hung your hat on this year. This is your guy. Like, are you going to let him go out and chuck it if you need him to? I don't know. I just feel like this game's going to be a brawl. And I mean,
he can chuck it as long as he throws it at number 18. Then he's allowed to chuck it.
Well, throw it at Ibuka too. Like, those are two really, really good players. Like, I like that. So, man, the total's just a little low. Like, I think what did I say? It was 46.5. I think I can't find it all of a sudden.
Yeah, I'm not touching that thing.
Maybe I should just do this. 46.5 is just super low, but it does feel like it's going to be that kind of brawl.
I don't think we're getting the same game as we saw as either of these two teams playing against Penn State. I think both. I don't think we're getting that low of a total. I don't think it's going to be 20-12 or 24-15. I think both of these offenses are better than that.
I don't know that it's out of the realm of possibility.
It's not out of the realm of possibility. It wouldn't shock me if you said the final score was 24-17. But I just think in terms of how inept Penn State's offense looked both times, I'll be honest. I don't think you're getting that from either side of the ball here. I think both of these offenses are clearly better than what we saw from Penn State.
Like, if you were to tell me this game is going to finish 24-17, I'd buy it. Like,
I wouldn't be shocked. I just more so from the standpoint of how inept the offenses look at times, and even 24-17, like, Michigan, Penn State was 17-9 and really only got up that high because of the stupid decision by James Franklin to go for it when he did. And then, Penn State went down and scored because Michigan was playing in the prevent. And then Ohio State, like, that game, I think they scored more in the fourth quarter than they did throughout the rest of the game. So, like, I don't think those games were by any means even they weren't as good offensively as the scores even suggested. And those scores were very low.
Right. So, so that's that for those games. Have you bet anything this week? I have not bet anything.
I have not bet anything this week. It's too early. I didn't see any early lines that I loved. I mean, Brian, Michigan fan here, is telling us to bet the over, so maybe we'll bet the over here.
I think the defenses. I think the defenses are both really, really good. Oh my God, I didn't see that the total in the Iowa game was down to 26.5.
It's 26.5.
at FanDuel right now.
No, what didn't it? I think it opened in like 31.
It is the
I mean,
Iowa
I
Nebraska
have to bet.
total,
I have to bet that.
26.5.
I have to bet that.
I'm kind of scrolling through some of these. Oh, another game that you guys should watch on Friday if you have time. Skip the shitty NFL game. Watch UTSA Tulane. It is a play-in game for the AAC championship game. The winner goes to the AAC championship. UTSA got off to a bit of a slow start this year, but Frank Harris has gotten healthier. They're really good. Frank Harris, Michael Pratt, two really good quarterbacks. Future Notre Dame quarterback Michael Pratt, isn't he going to go into the portal? I don't know.
Fingers crossed. He said no, but come on.
Oh,
So did Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman did last year too.
Anyway, that's going to be an awesome game that I'm going to miss because I'm going to be traveling back from Minnesota. But if you can watch that game,
scrolling through here.
Watch that one.
Nothing's popping up.
There were some that I looked at that were interesting to me. If I can find, let's see, UNLV laying 3 against San Jose State. UNLV, if they win, they make the Mountain West Championship game. 3 at home, I don't think is a lot. Mickey says he got UTSA early at 3.5. I don't hate it. I think.
Is Shedeur playing for Colorado?
I have no idea. I'm not sure. I saw that line.
Utah's minus 21.5.
That leads me to believe he's not, because
I would.
I know Colorado is bad, but Utah is not very good either. I know it's at home, whatever. UNLV was one that I looked at that I kind of like, and then there was another one that I saw. Arizona's only laying 10.5 at Arizona State, which, by the way, I was wrong, Matt. The Pac-12 title game is not set in stone.
If Oregon loses and Arizona wins,
Arizona goes to the Pac-12 title game.
Imagine if Arizona just through all this ended up winning the Pac-12.
With all due respect to Arizona, as happy as I have been and how much I've enjoyed watching them this year, that would really be kind of a wet fart of an ending if the Pac-12 gets left out of the playoff because Arizona somehow beats Washington.
That would be
because Oregon State.
That would be the most Pac-12 thing ever.
Yeah.
All year, you're like, oh man, this is the best conference. It's the most fun conference, and it probably is the deepest conference and most fun conference. But to just have a 3-loss team come out of nowhere with a late charge, go win the conference, and keep everybody out of the playoff yet again, that would be really, really fitting for how that conference is going out.
It really would be. I didn't realize. God, I mean, it's not happening. I know it's.
Maybe I'll bet the Pac-12 cannibalizes parlay. I'll bet a Oregon State money line on the road, or parlay an Arizona money line and Oregon State money line.
There you go. Let's see at FanDuel let's see Arizona, and then if we search Oregon,
I kind of like.
If you want to parlay that right now, it is plus 475, so it's a little under.
Okay, I think I might dabble on that.
I mean, it would be the most ridiculous way for this to end. So that was
if only I could then parlay it with a hypothetical Arizona over Washington money line.
Well, some books will let you do some of the offshores will let you do rolling money line parlays.
Okay.
So you can leave that open ended there. Another one that's kind of staring me in the face. Oklahoma State. It's a big number, 16.5. But BYU has been awful on the road.
They really have been terrible.
They have been awful on the road. Oklahoma State needs to win just to have a shot to make the Big 12 championship game, which if you would say, hey, what are the scenarios that exist to make the Big 12 championship game? Matt, the Big 12 doesn't even know. They put out a clarification that's the other day said that if Texas wins, they qualify. If Texas loses, things get chaotic, is more paraphrasing essentially. But they have no idea.
They're just banking on Texas winning. They essentially, the Big 12 is essentially put a money line on Texas to win.
Which is really funny in retrospect because before the season started, the commissioner of the Big 12 was speaking at some Texas Tech fundraising event and said on Thanksgiving weekend, you need to go out and beat Texas. Legitimately, the commissioner of this conference said, you need to go beat Texas. And now if they do, it's going to throw this whole everything into chaos in that league with the potential outcomes and potential scenarios, because there's going to be a 4-way tie, and Texas didn't play Oklahoma State, Kansas State didn't play Oklahoma, Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma, Oklahoma beat Texas, Texas beat Kansas State. This whole thing becomes super convoluted, and the Big 12 frankly deserves that. So there's that. So if you want to root for chaos, I think you should. There you go. There's another chaos money line parlay, Matt. Parlay. Let's see what the Big 12 chaos scenario.
Parlay Kansas
Let's see.
State, Oklahoma
So-
State to win, and Texas Tech. That sounds
Texas
pretty
Tech.
juicy.
Let's see. We have Texas Tech. I gotta look all of these up. Oklahoma to win. Oklahoma
State with that minus 1,000 money line.
State. Yeah, and then Kansas State, Iowa State. It looks like it's about 7-1 for all of those things to happen.
Maybe I parlayed that with the Pac-12 chaos parlay.
There you go.
Then
You
we
just put
get
all
real
these
nuts.
dogs, then you put those,
Yeah.
or maybe just to make things interesting, what time is because the Texas game's on Friday. So do you just forget the favorites and do you just do Arizona or no, do you do Oregon State and Texas Tech?
Yeah, maybe that's the way to go. Just the underdogs.
Oh, Oregon State that game's Friday.
That game's Friday night.
It's what it says on FanDuel. It says
Oh, okay.
8:30 p.m.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So
7:30
there you
p.m.
go. If you parlay Texas Tech and Oregon State and just say I'm rooting for chaos, that's about 20-1 for both of those teams to win on the road. So there's that.
I love that. I'm gonna have so much fun with this weekend. I love this weekend. It's just nonstop football and sports, just sports in general.
It is.
It's gonna be great.
Just everything. College basketball. Shout out to anyone who has the tolerance to watch that sport this time of year.
If you
shout
love
out to-
college basketball, shout out Brian if you're still watching. Today is a great day for that. There's 2 top 10 matchups.
Oh,
I think
is there?
Marquette's in the Maui number 1, Kansas number 1. They have Marquette number 4 Marquette. I think Purdue's 2. They have Tennessee who's 7.
Oh, so it's just all old Texas basketball coaches. Yeah, that's a thing I don't want to watch. But shout out to everyone who does. A lot of NFL. Choops. No, like it's awesome, Choops. Like if you like it, I don't want to dog anyone who likes that because Lord knows I've watched terrible college football games enough in my life.
I just can't get into it till football's over. That's
Yeah,
when
I can't get
start
into it. Yeah, I can't get into it till football's over, and then until the NCAA
Yeah, I pretend that I'm
Maybe
getting into it once
championship
football's
week.
over.
Maybe I'll kind of get
Yeah.
into it a little bit.
I pretend I'm getting into it that first week after the Super Bowl, and then I watch a couple games, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to check back in March. And then the Saturday and Sunday morning games that come on
Yeah.
CBS, like, all right, maybe those, but like I can't. I just can't.
My internet down here in the basement is not working so hot. I'm trying to see what the price to win the FCS national championship is because that bracket came out. We love talking. Oh, there it is. FCS. Do they have? South Dakota State.
Did
South
Phil's
Dakota State's
Crusaders get in?
-150. They did not. They got left out. They finished
that's too
7-4. It's gonna be hard for them in a pretty weak conference at 7-4 to make it.
Yeah.
Without the AQ, and they didn't.
Had my
South
fingers
Dakota State
crossed.
-150 to win the title. That's probably fair. In fact, if you want to throw if you're looking to sweeten a parlay, I wouldn't mind throwing South Dakota State there because South Dakota State's probably going to romp. I think Montana is the only other team that Montana is the only other team just that might contend for it. But
Montana stomped
that's pretty
Montana
much it in
State.
terms of that. And Ferris State,
Right.
they did the last 3 years. The home team has just absolutely dominated that game. Montana got off to a bit of a slow start to change quarterbacks, and they've been really good ever since. But Montana's kind of so the FCS Reddit, their Twitter page, they love to compare Montana to Texas. They're like Montana is the Texas of the FCS. It's just a team that always gets an insane amount of hype and always comes up short. And so that's kind of the thing that.
Well, I'm adopting Montana. They're my team. I want the Grizz.
There you go. Go
Going for the
Grizz. We love the Grizz.
But I'm absolutely also going to throw in South Dakota State to win it all in some parlays because I love that idea.
Yeah, I mean, just parlay them with Georgia or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, man, on that note, I'm going to go see if my wife's awake. She's
Love it.
Because we've had, we are puppy free this week, which is sad. We miss them, but this means we don't have to get up at 6 to take them out every day.
That is a
nice.
perk. I was helping my parents watch their puppy
Yeah.
last week, and my dad wanted to go to church in the morning. He was like, "Hey, you mind getting up at would you mind getting up with the dog?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." What time? He's like, "Oh, like 6:30." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I could do that. Sure." And the ball of energy at 6:30 when I'm just trying to sit there and drink coffee is not the most fun thing, but they're the best. Dogs are the best.
Exactly. We love them. We miss them, but I'm hoping I don't ever sleep. So I'm just hoping my wife is getting some rest, and just kind of I want her to have a 3 day, because like we have our flight home Friday is super early. We had to be up super early yesterday because we had to drive to New York, because it's like 500 something bucks to fly out of Hartford and like 250 to fly out of New York. It's like, well, I guess we're gonna suck that up.
Worth it.
So yeah, so Friday will be an early wake up call. So I'm hoping the next couple of days my wife gets a nice amount of sleep. But I'm gonna go see if she's up so we can go out and we can go do some stuff. We're gonna go out and celebrate our 6-month anniversary.
Happy anniversary, Dan.
Thanks, buddy. Because those are milestones that people celebrate, I guess.
Hey,
but we're gonna go.
And you celebrate whatever milestones you want. That's to each everybody's own.
Yeah. So on that note, we will wrap it up. We will be back next week's championship week. All those games are going to be awesome. So we'll talk about all of those, and we hope
have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Healthy Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you guys next week.